So I went out the other day, and in addition to the movies the other day, in addition to seeing Selma, I also saw the Imitation Game. And I didn't realize until I saw both that they're kind of a similar theme. I mentioned this on my Selma review. There's kind of a similar theme. Both films are about oppression, people being oppressed, for very basic reasons. This one, Selma, I knew all about. I will admit that this story I didn't know anything about. To be honest, I've never heard of Alan Turing. But in all fairness, the story of Alan Turing and the Enigma machine was kept hidden for 50 years. So therefore, it was a lot of it I didn't know. I didn't know that Turing's accomplishments were what led to computer technology. I didn't know. I knew about the Enigma machine, but only from some crappy movie that came out. It was U-571. That's the only time I'd ever heard of the Enigma machine. And that movie was so junky. If I'd just known about the Enigma machine from that movie, I would have assumed it was fictional. But excuse me. I thought it was very interesting. The Enigma machine apparently was a machine that the Nazis had, and it could be they could transmit communications to each other in code, and they could if the Enigma codes could be cracked, it would tell the Allies troop movements, plans, everything they needed to know to win the war. And cracking this code, it was said, shortened the war by 2 years. It was said. It was kind of interesting. Basically, what the Nazis had created with the Enigma machine was the beginnings of what we would call email. At least that's what I saw. And it was cracked by a team of people. One of which is the focus of this film. The whole team is in this film, but the main focus of this film is Alan Turing, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. And as we see him in the film, he's an extremely difficult person to know, an extremely difficult person to be around. He's a genius mind. He has a mind for mathematics and code breaking and things like that. He has a brilliant mind. But you wouldn't want to spend 5 minutes with him. And as played by Benedict Cumberbatch, what we see is that basically he is sort of a cross between John Forbes Nash and Sheldon Cooper. He can do all these calculations. He can unlock mysteries and secrets. He can build machines and all of this. But he can't carry on a conversation with another human being, or civilized conversation. He's hired during World War II in this movie to be part of the team that will crack Enigma. And he's very arrogant about his abilities, to the extent that when he walks in the room and he looks around, he tells the commanding officer, essentially, you can fire everybody else here because they'll only slow me down. And that's the basis of the character, and it's very interesting to watch. What's interesting is he has those character traits as the movie opens. What's interesting is to watch the progression of him as the movie goes on. We don't learn to love him, but we see bits of humanity, more human ways of dealing with people creep in. And a lot of that comes from this whole story is told in the present, which is 1951, where he's been it's told in the present, I'm sorry, in 1951 when he's been arrested for sexual deviancy, and which basically means homosexual activity, which in England at the time was illegal. So the story flashes back to World War II, where he's hired onto this project, and he's got all these people sitting around, spending day and night working on code books to try and crack this code, and they can't get it cracked because it keeps changing. So Turing comes up with a machine that will do that job. And the movie makes clear that what he's doing is he's basically inventing the world's first computer. And through all of this, he learns, of course, to sort of work with people. And that's brought on by a woman named Jane Cook, played by Keira Knightley, probably in her best performance in years. And because as a woman, she's sort of oppressed in the same way that he is, which I'll talk about in a moment. And they sort of bond together. Now, the reason he's oppressed is because he's a homosexual, which, like I said, was illegal at the time. And so the story also flashes back to when he was a kid. He was in love with a fellow classmate, and there was a tragedy there, and it sort of closed him up emotionally. So it's really the story of a man who's sort of bound up, who finds little rays of light in his personality. And the real success of this movie is not only that it's a tense World War II drama, but that it's also a great character study, because Benedict Cumberbatch gives a wonderful performance as Alan Turing, as a man who is sort of bound up in himself. Benedict Cumberbatch has always played the guy who knows everything. He's smarter than you, and yet you wouldn't want to spend 5 minutes with him. You're fascinated by him, but you don't want to spend any time with him. We saw this when he played Julian Assange. We saw this when he played. We see this when he played Sherlock. We saw this when he played Khan. But this time, it's a little easier to get. He's a little easier to get close to. Turing is not exactly a man that you like, but he's a man that you feel sympathy for. And it's a really, really great performance. And I'm really glad that he got an Oscar nomination yesterday. I have to change my battery, so I'll be back in part 2.